Welcome, everybody. This is the inaugural attempt at a Geek Cabal podcast. We're going to record this part like this just in case we don't get everything lined up and this only ends up being a video. But generally, this is the plan, is this is going to be a podcast. We have a few topics we're going to try to cover. So, before we get started, I just want to, for those of you who watch this, let us know how the experience goes for you. Or sorry, watch and listen if I do everything correctly. Because YouTube has a podcast section, that's where this is going first. And then if I can get everything sorted out, it's going to go on some other podcasting things. So, however you consume this, give us feedback, please. Both in terms of the format, but also in terms of like picture quality, sound, things like that. Depending on what we talk about, there's probably going to be some things mentioned that if you're only listening to this on audio, please check out our Twitter account at Real Geek Cabal, which I guess it's still going to be called a Twitter account. I don't know, is it an X account now? Who knows?
It's both.
And also on our Facebook, Geek Cabal on Facebook, because this is kind of new territory for me. I don't know if we have a way to post links anywhere as far as a podcast goes since you're listening to it on audio. So check there, because there are a few things I'm going to mention that will have links in our first little segment here.
And we may end up, depending on how the podcast stuff goes, we may end up archiving this on the channel itself too, so that if people do want to go and find it there.
Yes, you could potentially be watching this on our actual YouTube channel, because that is part of the plan, is to also put video that we're recording here on there. So in that case, look for the links in the description, because that's where they'll be on here. But also check out our Twitter and Facebook accounts. So, first topic. We're recording this on Friday,
the 28th.
The July 28th, 2023. So, next week is GenCon. And both Jim and myself are going, along with Chad and Brad. For those of you who've seen our videos, if you're listening to this. Yes, real shortly I'm going to stop saying little things like that, but just to drive the point home here. There are two other members of the old Geek Cabal. I'm Bobby, who's been doing most of the talking thus far, and also Jim over here. And so, like I said, first topic, GenCon. It's next week. As of this recording, probably a few days less by the time I get it up. But yeah, so we did a video about GenCon tips, which you should totally check out on our YouTube channel. And but a few other things have popped up in terms of updates that I just want to throw out real quick, and then we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about what we're looking forward to. So right now, we mentioned in the tips that there is a catalog, not a campaign guide, but like a con guide. Well, there's a digital version of it up right now. So it's the book that will be in print at the convention, so you can look through it right now. And there is some interesting information. I've digitally flipped through it. Thankfully, it did not have the listings for the events like the physical one will, because that would have been like 60% of the book. So you should totally check that out. There'll be a link in the description or on our social media accounts. And they've also put the listing for the food trucks that will be there, some of the other food things that will be there. Which will include the usual, the hot box pizza, which this year will be featuring the Queen's Hambit pizza, which is a ham and barbecue, a few other toppings. It's like some spicy mustard. It's one of the only ones I've ever heard that actually sounded potentially appealing, so I'm actually going to try this one, unlike the terrible ones I've had in the past. Island noodles will be there, but also there's a new business there in downtown. I believe it's called Prime 47. It's a steak place. Looked to be on the expensive side to me, but I'm not a millionaire, so maybe some of you folks, it's cheap. But they're going to have some kind of a setup there. I was unclear if they're actually going to be selling food there or not, just because it's not overly clear in the description, but you can enter to win gift certificates and stuff from them. Plus, like I said, the food truck list is going to be there, is on another site, which we'll link to that as well. They also mentioned the concert that we mentioned in the other video. So those are the big announcements. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, because this will probably be the last video that we record before Gen Con. So look for our updates from Gen Con on our social media accounts. And afterwards, we'll probably be doing a roundtable video like this. Hopefully we can get all 4 of us together. 5 if we can get Owen, because he's going as well. So, Jim.
Anything I'm looking forward to?
Anything you're looking forward to? Or anything you want to say about Gen Con?
Well, I mean, obviously, I always like to look at just random games. Like, I don't go in thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to look for this one particular item. It's more of, I like to find games that look appealing and then buying them and trying them out. And I mean, that every one of the booths, you know, or a lot of the booths that have their own like developed games always have like the working or the display out there that you can, you know, look at and kind of play around with and such. And you know, that's nice. I mean, obviously the food trucks, I'm all on board for that. Get to try out some random stuff. And I don't know, I like to see what people do for the cosplay stuff, but sorry, I'm laughing because I've got a cat that's trying to...
We just about had a major technical difficulty.
That wanted to take down the camera, but, you know, hey, I can't help it. And I don't know, maybe they'd be better stars for the show anyways. They'd probably get more views, but... You know. But no, cosplaying, I mean, I just like to see the outfits people put together and stuff.
Yeah, and since you're going Saturday, that's like the day to go for that. So
I always wanted to do something like that and, you know, put something together, but... You know, I see some of these costumes and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to compete. I don't even want to try at that point. I think in one of our previous, you know, we were talking about people dressing for Gen Con and stuff like that. And I don't want to discourage anybody that wants to go on a budget, but just understand that, you know, what you do is a budget build versus somebody that's, you know, going in and spending, you know, hundreds of hours of foam molding and mechanical work versus, you know, going to eBay and buying I can't think of the Ruby's costume. That's the main, like, costume line or costume manufacturer that you can buy stuff from. Don't get me wrong. If you have them, buy them, wear them. That's fine. Just understand that, you know, it's a different level versus somebody that goes through and puts together a legitimate costume and all that. So
yeah, I mean, I've seen in the costume contest, I've seen people. I believe this woman was an engineering student at Purdue who created a harness that had wings that extended out something like 8 feet in each direction. And another year, I saw a girl who had she was supposed to be like a fairy princess or something, and beneath the skirt that she was wearing, she had made a hydraulic lift so that like it lifted up and it made her look like she was hovering on like a cloud or something. It was really impressive. And then I don't think it was a costume, but it was definitely like a statue or something of a Sentinel from the X-Men. They had like a wagon pulling it around, and like they'd hit a button and the music from the '97 X-Men series would start up, and I was like, yes, that's awesome. So yeah, to Jim's point, like, don't be afraid to dress up, but also like, if you're on a budget, don't think that you're just gonna like knock it out of the park. Unless you're like a few people I've seen who go as Tony Stark, not Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Yeah, seen a few of those at Indiana Comic-Con where there's just like they wear like a nice suit or like a blazer jacket, a white shirt, and then an arc reactor.
Right there, you just basically had to have the facial hair, and the arc reactor.
Well, like I say, or you can be like me and you just shave and then you have the facial hair versus the people that.
Yeah.
But anyways, but no, I mean those are the things, and obviously for me, I'm taking my son with me, so just being able to spend some time up there with him. I'm going to have to do some looking because I know that they do have some video game stuff up there too. It's usually a lot more hit and miss. I think they do have an arcade as well.
They have before. I'd have to check to see if they have it still. And in years past, it's been, like you said, it's been hit and miss. Like, the BattleTech game that Harebrained Studios released, they had that set up there years ago. They unfortunately don't have the BattleTech pods this year, from what I understand, which are pods that you get into to play BattleTech, the video game, which I think is actually the engine from MechWarrior 4, heavily modified. But you're in there with like all the controls and monitors and everything, and it's really cool. If any of you happen to have gone to Virtual World back in the early to mid '90s, that's where they got these. And they also had a couple other games there, but they actually had one in the Circle Center Mall in Indianapolis for a little while.
Sometime I need to, like, when we're doing this podcast, I need to bring in my Steel Battalion controller. We could just set that here in front of us.
There we go.
Like I said, that's about the closest that I have to anything like that. To
be able to drive a tank.
Yeah. Unfortunately, mine doesn't have the foot pedals behind it or with it anymore. But the that, and I don't even know that you can play it without. I know there are some people that built servers to play Steel Battalion, but it's like an online-only game. So, like, there's no...
Man, yeah.
There's no way to play it either. But, no, I was talking to somebody about my Steel Battalion controller, and they're like, you have one? I'm like, well, yeah, but it's missing the foot pedals. So, like, we'd still give you about $100 for it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's... I know I'm never going to use it for anything besides just something to set out, but... It's just an awesome looking piece. I mean, it's got all the toggles and switches, and it's even got the eject button where you can flip up the little plastic thing to hit a button to eject out of your mech or whatever.
That's cool.
And yeah, sometime I'll have to do a review on that just to show it, because it's neat, and I bought it just because it's something that I'll never see probably again out in the wild. And if I do, cool, I'll probably buy it too, because. Why not have... There's two versions of it. There's one that's blue and one that's green.
Oh, the old why have one when you can have two for twice the price?
Yes. But anyways, no, I was going to say, yeah, that's about all for me for the whole GenCon stuff. Because me, it's just... I like the board game thing, but I'm very inexperienced in what to look for, what to get. So I'm usually going in there kind of blind, just saying, what looks cool, what has cool little miniatures, what has a neat looking board, or for me, sometimes I'm a cheapskate, and it's like, oh, this was on clearance, and it looks okay, so.
Hey, I buy all kinds of stuff at clearance at GenCon. I don't use 90% of it, but I buy it, so if I ever do need it, I do have it.
So, what are you looking forward to?
Well, Chris and I are going to go do the True Dungeon on Thursday, and we signed up for the even more expensive version that's like the 20th anniversary one. That actually has like multiple paths apparently, because normally the way True Dungeon works, we're not LARPing, but there's people that are LARPing essentially. And you come into a room and it's either a combat encounter or it's a puzzle, and normally it's a sequence of rooms and there's no deviation. So this one sounds like it's different. It's a little bit longer and it's supposed to be more in depth, and so we're hoping that it's really good. We've lucked out the last couple of years and wound up with people that had just all kinds of extra tokens and stuff, and they freely share them because they want to succeed. So because you get a special badge if you survive all the way through, and you get better treasure pulls at the end and everything. There's a whole economy for the tokens, like real money economy. So that's gonna be Thursday night. I've got to see if there's tickets still left. I'm thinking about signing up to get the newest Dragonlance book from Weiss and Hickman and have it autographed and everything. I can buy it in their booth, but they've got a thing Thursday morning where they're going to have like a little presentation and everything. And so I'm thinking about doing that if there's still tickets available, and if I think I can get up at like 7 in the morning on Thursday and drive downtown, because it starts like at 8 o'clock. But other than that, for me, I'm hoping I can still get in on some BattleTech events, because there was a lot of questions on our end as far as scheduling and where we were going to stay and driving back and forth. So I didn't commit to a whole bunch of events like I really should have right off the top. So I don't know if there's any still open. Other than that, I might try to get in on a Dungeon Crawl Classics game, because I really do want to try the system out, because it looks fun, and I think we would have fun playing it also, as possibly an alternative to D&D. Probably with this lineup, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the dealer's hall. which the last couple of years I haven't because I've had too loaded of a schedule. So to give me a chance to really walk around and look at things, maybe interview some people, who knows. And then there's some things like outside the con that I'm looking forward to, like going to eat at Fogo de Chao, which is a Brazilian steakhouse, all you can eat or all you can meet, depending on how you look at it. That'll be Saturday. And the food trucks. You know, for me, like the food is definitely a big component to this whole trip. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting a lobster roll at least once because lobster rolls are delicious. And I think Chad's definitely looking forward to the alligator at Chef Dan's.
Hey, he can get alligator bites here locally, actually.
Whereabouts?
Snaps. Jasper.
Okay.
Yes.
I knew there was a place in Evansville that sold them.
Yes, I mean, they literally have an alligator out front, like a wooden one.
You know, you would think he used to live in Jasper. He should know that.
And it's actually just down the road from where his house was.
That's even worse. And I know Brad has a whole bunch of seminars on his schedule, hopefully to improve our content on here, but we'll find out.
Improve it? You can't
you can't improve upon perfection, I know, but
I mean, just watch our screenwriters.
Yeah. Watch our argument for why we need a script writer. But yeah, that you know, it's that seeing my friend Chris, just getting out of town for a weekend because we do live in the middle of nowhere, and there's you know other things to it. I'm sure I'll buy a bunch of stuff that I will never use because that happens every year at GenCon. I'm like, oh man, I'll use this for X, Y, Z, and then it's like, oh no, I guess I really won't. So I'm sure that'll happen. Probably try to find something for Sarah. Probably get some new T-shirts. Even though, on a personal note, I've lost all kinds of weight since like December, and so shirts I haven't been able to wear in like 2 or 3 years now fit again. So my wardrobe has expanded tremendously recently. While I ironically have contracted. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll be buying many new shirts, but we'll see. Still have trouble finding my size. I don't know how they don't look around and see that like they would probably sell a lot of them. But other than that, there's not any particular game I'm looking forward to. Other than, like I said, the Catalyst booth for the BattleTech stuff. That's my first stop. We'll be going by the WizKids booth, trying to get pictures of the upcoming D&D minis, maybe the HeroClix stuff. We know a guy that's going to be demoing there. Jeremiah will be doing a demo for something. He just posted about it the other day. No, we know another. Well, I don't know. You ever met Julius?
Yeah.
Okay, so Julius, who one of our first videos on this channel, like way back when, like probably the first like 10, 20 videos, we did an interview with Julius. He works there for WizKids during these conventions. I haven't double checked, but I'm assuming he's going to be there this year. So, you know, look forward to talking to him, see what's going on there. And other than that, I'm going to look through the catalog again because there were a few new games listed that look kind of interesting. I might try to check them out, but I don't remember what they were off the top of my head. So,
so speaking of Catalyst Labs, I want to take a look at Catalyst Games. They're new. So I'm trying to think when my first time to go into GenCon was, but it was either the first or second time that I had gone. Rather Dashing Games used to have a booth there, and I remember I kind of got interested in that because one of the art designers for that was Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters. So I got a couple of my board games actually signed by him from there. Well, Rather Dashing Games has now, I guess they were either purchased or whatever by Catalyst Labs.
Yeah.
And now it's Catalyst Games, and they're going to be, I guess, producing their games under that new label, but I'm assuming it's still going to be the same type of games, which I like because a lot of their games are, I think, more driven towards like younger kids, you know, with, you know, stuff like that. So with me having, you know, a 10-year-old, it's good to find games that I can, you know, I think that maybe will be more interesting to him versus, you know, some of the stuff that's a little bit, you know, I don't know, more graphic, more intense, more whatever that may be. I mean, I'm not going to be playing Cards Against Humanity with my 10-year-old, so.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't.
Though I wouldn't put it past him to actually win it somehow, because he would probably come up with some sort of combination that he, doesn't understand why it's funny or why it's, like
Yeah,
bad or.
I saw a game the other day, and I think this was actually at Walmart. It seemed like it's Cards Against Humanity, but not quite as vulgar, and with an extra step beyond the pairing the cards. It was the extra step was like you had to write something in, and I don't know about that. So, but it seemed like it was a similar type of game, but not as vulgar.
Yeah.
So, if you've got people that you think would like that type of game, but well, I don't even think I can mention anything on any of those cards from Cards Against Humanity, so I'm not even going to try to think of one that's not bad. If you've not played it, it is a very adult game.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, sorry to cut you off there, Jim. I actually did get to play it with one of the designers of the game there one year. We were kind of as the one of the years that they were actually there, and they were beta testing some new cards. They'd mixed them in, and so we played for like I think it's about an hour or so, and then we talked about how we felt about the lay of the cards that were in there, because they didn't specify which ones were new, and just if there were any that we felt strongly about. We kind of talked about designing the game and how they go about things. And it's an interesting experience, and I would hope they'd come back every year since then. They never have, so I don't know.
But no, I was gonna say the one thing to understand if you do go in and play Cards Against Humanity is it's not the context of the cards; it's the absurdity of what you're putting out there.
Yeah. It really really helps if you've got a group of people that just don't take offense to anything, because it's pretty well all fair game in that game.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing to also, at least my personal view on comedy in general, is that you have to go in with it understanding that a lot of the context of any sort of comedy is the absurdity of what's being spoken about.
Yeah.
And that's just anything in general, because I know some people are like, well, that comic's not funny. He's vulgar. He's this. He's that. And to some people, they like that amount of absurdity. They like that whatever. I'm kind of in a gray area when it comes to that. I mean, I like like I'm going to go see Jim Gaffigan, and he's very dry on his humor, but I don't know, he's got some stuff that's kind of funny, some good content out there. But anyways,
Yeah.
Anyways.
So yeah, that's what we're looking forward to there for GenCon. And again, little blurb here. Keep an eye on our social media accounts during the convention. We'll be posting some pictures and stuff there. And depending on how we can sort out editing and everything, there might be some short videos on there. But definitely look for us after the convention as we give a post-convention talk and maybe review some stuff that we picked up and things like that. So, moving on, we have a video that should be released before this one, where we talk about AI villains in primarily movies. And there was just a couple little follow-up things we wanted to do to that. Instead of doing a whole separate video, we're just going to throw them in here. The big one, at least for me, was that there was one major example that I totally left out. That's the Hyperion novels. I think it's called the Hyperion Cantos. There's 4. I've only read the first 2. But AI is a very major part of that. And it's one where they actually come in 3 different varieties. There's the ones that are ambivalent to the continued existence of the human race. Ones that seem to be actively on our side, and ones that actively hated us and wanted to destroy us. But they all kind of had to coexist. And so in the novel itself, it's in the distant future. Earth has been destroyed, and it's either implied or outright stated that the AI has actually triggered that. As an experiment gone wrong, they created a black hole inside the Earth and eventually consumed the planet. But it forced humanity to migrate out and to spread. And they needed that because they needed more people or something. And I don't remember all the details, it's been a while. But the AIs themselves had basically come back to humanity and been like, hey, we want to be your friends. And like, we've got a planet somewhere. It's where the system core is. We're never going to tell you where it is. You're never going to find it. But in friendship, we're going to give you the ability to teleport between worlds instantaneously. Also to the point that we can open up like permanent gates so that like one room can exist on like 3 different planets at the same time. Literally, like, one part of the room is on one planet, and as you walk across the room, you transition to another world, but you're still in the same room. All right. And yeah, so the humans ultimately come to realize that the machines plan on infecting several of them with something that will make them immortal, but will also make them progressively dumber each time they die, because they will still die from things, but they'll resurrect. But they need people to still be left because a lot of people have essentially a computer built into their head, and the machines need that for the processing power. So they need a certain number of humans left alive, but they plan on killing most of the rest. So the humans figure this out, and they have a weapon that can destroy the AIs. The AIs don't know this, and they time it so that it will go off right as it's going into one of the teleportation gates, because they realize the AIs do not have a home world. They're inside the other dimension. And so that's what they do. But the AIs are also fighting against God, or at least what they perceive to be God from the future. It gets really weird, and they try to force what they believe to be God into a body, and he rejects it, and humans take out the AIs, and then at the end, like, humans also have developed some kind of means of communication, and the thing that they believe to be God basically like sends one last signal on that, basically saying like, you're not worthy of this. And so then humanity is spread across the cosmos with no way to interact because the gateways all get destroyed because the AIs run them. So yeah, the second book, humanity kind of shoots itself in the foot on that one. But it's that or enslavement, so they chose that. And all the while, there's also this giant bladed monster from the future, and there's a planet where time moves backwards. So
Is the giant bladed monster also fighting God?
no, it just wants to kill people. It's called the Shrike, and it's also, I think it's tied into the AIs somehow, if I remember correctly. The books get weird. I've got to read the other 2 to see how it all turns out. But no,
Weird, you say. I don't know. From what you said, it sounds pretty sane to me.
well, just it's another book. It's another story involving both AI and time travel, because of the whole backwards through time thing, and just the fact those 2 seem to keep being linked in various storylines. You know, happens in the X-Men, happens in the Terminator. I'm sure there's others that I'm totally forgetting.
But I think the problem is I think most plausible though is that going into the future versus going into the past, because anything, because I think the closest that we could get to traveling in a sense back in time would be if you do faster than light communication. I believe. I think things get really dicey with that.
Oh yeah, I've heard someone try to lay it out before, like how it just doesn't work.
Because you
could have a situation where you're receiving the signal before it was sent, kind of things.
Well, yeah, like
which could then allow you to act, which could influence the signal being sent in the first place.
Yeah, because like say the one in space is like, say if there was a supernova going off and a supernova is going off and you send a faster than light communication off to, you know, somewhere else, some other point in space and time, that by the time they get it, there will be no you can actually send it somehow before that event actually takes place. To your point, then they, in a sense, should be able to then send something back to. I don't know. It confuses the hell out of me. I heard someone talk about it, and I'm just like, this is some crazy shit. It's interesting. Don't get me wrong, but it really shoots into the, you shoot everything to the foot, saying, that even faster than light travel is almost a near impossibility because
I think the example I heard was essentially, suppose there's essentially the equivalent of a gas station out in space, and a ship goes by at light speed, and right as it passes by, they send a faster than light signal, and it reaches, let's say, Earth first, and then they're able to send a signal back, and I'm trying to remember how it all worked, but essentially, like the signal back could potentially get to the ship before it passes the thing, and things just get weird at that point.
You know,
Yeah.
I am not a rock scientist, as some people would say. So interesting stuff, but not something that I'm going to be able to delve into and explain and all that. But I do recommend, though, look up, faster than light communications, and just, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff out there where they just explain why it's.
Yeah. So to your other point, though, whenever you say going forward in time, you don't mean via time travel, though, correct?
No.
You mean like cryogenically freezing or something.
Correct.
And basically just letting time elapse and then.
Well, that, and I think like they did in the Time Machine, where they were able to envelop the machine in a bubble that.
Oh, well, see, that's where you lose me, because I don't think you can go forward in time that way. Because the problem is the future, at least from our perspective, hasn't happened yet. So what are you going to?
Well, not only that, but what. So the problem with, well, actually the problem with every bit of time travel is not only do you have to be able to say, okay, what point in time do you want to go to, but you have to, wherever you're going, you have to know where it's at in its point in space too. Because if I time travel back, let's say 5 minutes into the past, I would not end up right where I'm sitting right now.
Right.
There's a chance that I'm going to end up
in space.
Out in the
10,000 feet up in the air.
Yeah, somewhere
in the middle of the earth.
Because it depends on where, relative to where I'm, at now, versus if I'm still here, where would I, if I'm still in this point in space? Because not only is the Earth spinning, it's orbiting the sun, and our entire solar system / galaxy or whatever is also moving through space.
Right.
Everything's moving. So that's the one thing that I think.
That's why I assume that somehow the time machine's able to go to like a relative position. Instead of a fixed position in space, it's a relative position to where you are.
Now, they did kind of mention this actually in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now,
kind of. I think it was a.
I do believe it was a ploy out there, but that's the thing, is that I don't think anybody knew, because they were not where they thought they were, I think, when they entered into the portal.
No, they went to the portal in the right place, and they came out at the right place, just the wrong time. Which doesn't make sense for what Indy was saying as far as the continents shifting. Because it should have been potentially the right time in the wrong place, and not the other way around.
But at least in that, the time travel, it was a portal of sorts. So a portal can be like a wormhole. It's, you enter in at one point, then you've got the out point. You're not sitting in the same spot. You're actually moving through space and time at that point. So.
Yeah, but that one was that's one of the only ways time travel works, is where it's a loop, because that happened because it had already happened. Like they were destined to do that.
Yes, I do like the which I'm surprised that nobody had noticed it when they saw the watch, that they didn't kind of go, oh, well, let's look at that watch a little bit closer. Oh, well, I can see this is. Yada, yada, yada. But, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I thought that was one of the best, most well-done things in that movie, is because you're there thinking, oh, Archimedes, right?
Yeah, Archimedes.
Yeah, that he must have gone into the future because he's seen all of this marvelous things, and then, obviously, spoiler, he didn't go into the future. We went into the past, and that's where he saw our flying machine. That's where he got the watch.
Oh, I thought the implication was that he actually did still go into the future.
No.
Because what she said at the end, where the dial's only meant to take him back to right there. That was where it's designed to go back to.
But I think that would mean that regardless, he could go to the point of where right before he died, and go back to the point he made the machine. I don't think it doesn't ever take you into the future. I think it only takes you back to that point in the past.
Maybe.
Well,
I see what you're saying.
But no, to your point, because I get it. Because if it was able to point to one of those time whatevers, I don't know that he would have to know where that was at, and then he'd have to also have a way to get back.
Right. Well, I think the idea, like, if we're dealing with time portals, not a time machine,
Yeah.
then, and if you've got a device that can tell you where the time portals are, then that means that, for better or worse, free will doesn't exist and everything's already written. And so you know exactly where the time portals go. And it could be in the future. But that's my problem with going into the future period with time travel, is that the only way that works is if there's no free will and if everything's already happened.
Gosh, could you imagine though if there was a multiverse for every decision that every person made?
Well, that's in DC, that's the way it works. Because they talk about that in
Well, I mean, I guess
there's an animated movie. It's Crisis on Two Earths. They encounter the crime syndicate, and they realize that their universe is one where things went differently, and they eventually get back to Earth Prime. But the evil version of Batman, who I think is Owlman, literally mentions at one point that for every possible decision, he's like, there's literally an infinite multiverse in there because he's trying to find Earth Prime because he wants to destroy Earth Prime to destroy the whole thing.
That's crazy talk. That's all I gotta say.
Well, it also had one of the more profound comments in the entire thing. It's where he's Batman and him fight it out, and Batman's like, the difference is, we both stared into the abyss. He's like, you blinked. And then he's sitting there, Batman leaves, the bomb's only got a few seconds left, and he just looks at it and he's like, it doesn't even matter. Because it doesn't. Because in some other reality he escapes. In some other reality he chooses to stop it. His whole point was, because of that, his actions have no meaning whatsoever. Which is incredibly nihilistic, but, in that scenario that's also true. But, that's, so that little diversion there. The one other thing was, I don't think I mentioned the black hole. Which isn't really super AI, but like lots of robots in that movie, because the crazed scientist who got left in charge after the main guy died just turned the crew into robots. And I think Maximilian is an actual AI, but the rest of them are definitely definitely cyborgs.
For a Disney movie, it's
a little dark for a Disney movie. Yeah, where like at the end, their old the main guy there, Reinhardt, ends up having to jump into Maximilian's body and then ends up in like robot hell or something, where it's just him and the other robots and nothing but fire everywhere. And it's like, this is literally supposed to be hell. Like, that's what this is supposed to be. This is a metaphor for that. Like, this is really dark for a kid's movie. However, I think that movie is ripe for a remake. Like, there's all kinds of stuff there to work with.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you
might even be able to get Max Schnell back as Reinhardt. I think he's still alive.
You would need to. I mean, you'd have to update something. Obviously, technology would look different.
Yeah. Effects wise, but also the technology for the rockets and everything. You'd have to update all that.
I did like the fact though that obviously everything in space. There's always not going to be an explanation. I always like the fact that he said he found a spot that was unaffected by the gravitational pull of the black hole. And that's where he parked the ship.
I think he said that the first time, because eventually what he says is they've got a reactor on board that could probably power the entire Earth, and it's used to power the anti-gravity generators. They're fighting against the black hole. But they've been able to create enough energy to do that.
That's stupid.
And that's he's trying to convince them, like, to take that knowledge back to Earth, like to prove him right. Until he decides that they're a liability and they must be destroyed.
Yeah, because he may tell somebody that he's turned all of his crew into robots.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you come back and say, hey, there's a guy that turned all of his crew into robots, but he found a way of giving us infinite energy forever, I think some people are going to be like,
it's a damn shame all those people got lost on that voyage. So, free energy, you say. Yeah, that is exactly how that would go down, too.
And, don't get me wrong. I know that sounds very heartless, but... at the same time, though...
No, did you watch my review of Oppenheimer?
Why would I watch your review of Oppenheimer?
Thanks, Jim. No, because in that, basically, the same thing, Guy creates the atomic bomb for the United States, and then, because some political people disliked him, they just destroyed the rest of his life. And it's like... we wouldn't have won. This man deserves all kinds of recognition. And because one petty little man disliked him and had better political connections, he was able to destroy him. And it's just like, there's a real lesson in there, and, about institutions, using people for their skills and then just casting them aside. So, yeah, like to Jim's point, like that is exactly how that would go down as far as the black hole thing. But yeah, those are just a couple things. Jim, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No. I am all AI'd out. So.
Oh, well, I guess I shouldn't give you any spoilers for something
actually,
else
there's another one that I'm thinking here. It had a it was an AI movie. Gosh darn it! Now my brain's going.
The movie AI?
No. It was the Ex Machina?
Ex Machina?
Yeah.
With old Laura Croft and Poe Dameron?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting movie. Hard to call her a villain.
No, because, pretty much they were just...
Despite how the movie ended. But I think if anyone was a villain in that, it was Oscar Isaac's character.
Yeah. But no, that's honestly a future that I see things moving towards, unfortunately, because I think if the very first thing that, is going to start happening is they're going to make AI companions. One, I guess, I don't know if it's upside to that is it would be a way to control the population, though, because I know. Hey, you know what? I'm just saying. I'm just throwing facts out there. But it would be a form of population control, would it not?
Maybe.
But, either that or the robots kill us all, which...
I suspect that's the more likely outcome in that scenario, but...
I did feel sorry for the one guy, because, I don't think he truly deserved what he got, but...
Well, right, that's what I mean, why I'm tempted to also label her a villain, but I also understand from a self-preservation standpoint why she did that. So...
There's many things she could have done, though. She could have put it on a time delay to let him out at, some point in the...
Yeah, and who's to say she didn't?
True.
We don't know. I don't think she did, but maybe she did.
Because the one thing that she had the advantage of is that... all she would have had to do is, before she left, is she could have literally changed her skin into whatever the hell she wanted to, left, and nobody would ever find her.
Yeah.
Except for when,
she goes through a metal detector at an airport.
Or, something happens and she has to we need to replace her skin. She's like, hold on.
Yeah.
There's my new skin. That's... but no, I'm good on that.
All right. So, on to the next topic. Oh, by the way, like I said, look out for that video. It should be up before this one. It's a far more lengthy discussion on the AI as villains and AI in general. Yeah, so we also had the new trailer for the Marvels come out. I know personally I think this trailer looked better than the first one. Looked a little bit more like an interesting movie, a little more fun, maybe. We'll see. Yeah. But I got better vibes from this one, so...
Yeah, and obviously I want to try to go in because I want to see the MCU turn around. I want to see a positive thing come from this. I can say my only gripe with the premise of it is that I think it's going to get kind of chaotic at points, which I understand chaos is fun. That's why I like the Doctor Strange too. A little chaos magic was great, but if every single... I was
thinking Warhammer 40k chaos, but keep going.
Yeah.
Death to the false emperor.
But I'll go if I want. But no, if every single time they use their power that they keep switching, I can imagine the fight scenes would get a little weird. That it would get to the point where it's like, okay, this is really hard to follow because and for some of them, is Captain Marvel throwing a punch considered using her powers?
Wouldn't think so.
So it would probably be like an energy blast or something like that.
Yeah.
If she's just using her fighting prowess, it should be fine. But then I could imagine you get some hijinks in there where one of the characters is somewhere else using her powers, right in the middle of somebody else in a fight scene. Or say you've got Monica Rambeau flying up to get a kitten out of a tree, and when she does, instead Captain Marvel comes in and like punches that cat like out of whatever, or something stupid like that. I don't know.
I expect part of that will be for a fight scene towards the end of the movie where they finally figured out how to coordinate or something.
Or it's probably something like, well, if this is going to happen, we need to all be in the same area while it's happening.
Yeah,
so
I think from the trailers that's definitely what they're going for, because they do kind of discuss, hey, this is what's happening. So I'm sure at some point they're like, we should all just stay together. In which case, it appears that a villain does this to them intentionally, from what the trailer's looking like. So then I suppose the villain will try to separate them.
I don't know. That sounds like a dick move to me, but
well, yeah, it's the villain.
Yeah,
and who for some reason really hates Carol Danvers, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, well, it would be perfect if it was something like the Beyonder, who would then show up for
Oh no, we're years out from Secret Wars, Jim. We've still got to introduce the Fantastic Four and the X-Men and all kinds of stuff, and then build up to Robert Downey Jr. coming back out of nowhere, and we're years off from that, like a decade.
Yeah, my big hope though from the trailers, like I said, it looks good. It looks looks like it's gonna be it looks entertaining. Is I'm hoping that whatever message, whatever story that they put out there, that they kind of focus more on telling a compelling story. And last couple of movies they've just, gosh, I think, and I haven't watched a lot of the last Marvel movies, but like when I watched Black Widow, I think there was interesting ideas there, but it was I don't know. I mean, there's just something gone with the quality. Like I thought Doctor Strange 2 was good. I thought No Way Home was good, but I don't know. I want to relive that magic from some of these offshoot movies. I mean, I still to this day will go back and watch the first Iron Man movie. It had a message in there. It had a message about greed and not caring about anybody but yourself and that kind of stuff. And hell, I think even to this day, if I watch it, when poor Jensen gets it,
Jensen.
Because I kind of knew that going in, that it's like he's talking about going back to his family. I'm like, he's already gone.
Yeah.
But I always hoped that that was just my negative thoughts, and well, he went to go join them, so.
Brought a tear to my eye to see him in the beginning of Iron Man 3. Although that might have also been the Eiffel 65. Hard to say.
Anyways. Not much to talk about on the Marvels trailer, I mean.
Yeah, like I said, I just, I'm slightly more hopeful after seeing it. Not to be one of those people, but it did look like Brie Larson was acting like a real human being in this trailer. And, actually capable of, and again, I hate to be one of those people, but, smiling, looking like she's having a good time too. So here's hoping. Because, I mean, it's been, 30 years since Captain Marvel in movie time, right? The 90s, because they're in the 2020 somethings. So, 30 years later, she hadn't aged a day. That's pretty good. But, by that point, I would hope that she's, comfortable in a personality that, not just be act like she got a stick in her ass.
Well, I think having a personality is a good start.
Yeah. So one of those things. Nothing against Brie Larson at all. She didn't write the movie. But yeah. So, plus I've seen her other things. I know she can act. Yeah, she was good in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I've seen some of her YouTube stuff, and I think she's got kind of a quirky, funny, nerdy attitude. And I'm always happy to see some people that kind of nerd out a little bit. I mean, when I heard about Henry Cavill, and I'm like,
I was gonna say, you mean like Henry Cavill?
I'm like, Jesus! Like, he builds custom PCs, paints miniatures, and all of that.
Apparently spearheading a Warhammer 40K show or something now for Amazon. So here's hoping on that one. Then he can afford to complete his. If Chad were here, he could tell me the faction. They're the guys that guard the Emperor. But they're like the most stupidly expensive models that they produce for Warhammer 40K. But anyway.
Yes, Chad, come back. Come back,
Chad, come back. We need you to talk about Warhammer. So, Secret Invasion. Now, I have finished the show, but I'm not going to talk about spoilers because Jim hasn't.
I watched a couple of episodes. It's just with work and such, it's been kind of hard to get to watch anything. So I'm also behind on Strange New Worlds.
I'm still back in season 1 on that. So
we got a little bit on that. But we were talking earlier about the budget of Secret Invasion.
From what I have seen, and I've seen this claim made a couple places, so I'm assuming they have a source for it, the claimed budget is $212 million. I mean, I know that, feature-length movies have budgets like that, and they're clocking at 2 to 3 hours, and this is technically around 6 hours. But still, like, having watched the whole thing, I have no idea where that money went. There's a few action set pieces. There's a big CGI battle at the end. And, you got the Skrull shape-shifting effects, which don't happen that often. But other than that, like, the Skrull stuff's all makeup, unless they're stupidly... Well, actually, I take back what I just said. I saw a screenshot from this where someone was trying to illustrate just how much CGI is taken over. And it's Nick Fury sitting there with, like, a shotgun in his hand or something. And then you see, like, the actual picture of what's really going on. Like, only the handle's real. It's all CGI from here on up. Like, half the crap behind him CGI. And I'm like, it had to have been cheaper just to, buy a bookcase full of books instead of make one out of CGI. To have him hold a prop shotgun instead of make a fake one.
Well, the prop shotgun, yes. The idea with all the green screen is so that if they have to go...
No, it's not even green screen. It's like literally just like a chunk. Like, this part over here is real. They just made this thing, whatever's back behind him. And if I recall correctly, it was a bookcase.
Well, and a lot of that they do because if they ever have to do reshoots or they need to change the scene up or something like that.
But I guess, but I mean, like, if a shot of just him sitting in a chair holding an item had like half the shot being CGI, like that has to be more expensive than just props, because there were no expensive parts in that scene. It's one thing if it's like a big bank of computer monitors. Okay, I get that. Because you want to control what all's on them and everything, sure, whatever. Or if he was holding like a fancy space ray gun of some kind.
So, I don't have any, I'll have to look up the updated numbers, but one thing I brought up is I wondered how much, each episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cost.
Yeah.
They said $6 to $9 million each.
Okay.
So, put that in perspective, how many episodes there were in a season of that versus the 6 episodes...
6 episodes of Secret Invasion,
yeah.
So you're looking at 16, 32. You're looking at 30. No, not quite 30.
Here I am texting because I don't want to let people think that I'm ignoring them. Because, gosh, if anyone messages me, I want to make sure that...
Yeah, you're looking at $35.33 million an episode. So, yeah, you're looking at a low-budget movie each episode.
Let's see if I can pull up the Marvel show budgets.
And, I mean, I get that you've got Samuel L. Jackson in there. I know that has to contribute to that, because I know he's not cheap. And then you got the guy that played Talos... And I can't think of his name. It's Ben something off, like Ben Mendelsohn, I want to say. You got Don Cheadle.
Okay.
You've got Emilia Clarke, and you have can't think of his name. The one SHIELD agent that's helping the Wakandans. Played Bilbo in the Hobbit movies.
Yeah. I'd have to
so anyway, you've got 5 stars that collectively probably constitute a big chunk of that budget.
So I looked up, just was trying to look up budgets, and this one came up that I thought was kind of an interesting topic. The 9 most expensive TV shows ever made. And this was on...
No, what's the date?
This is July 16th, 2022. So
okay.
So it's a little out of date, but let's see when, a year ago what we had here. So
well, I kind of got like top 5.
Well, okay, so let's just say I'll go slow. Westworld was $9 million an episode. God damn. Friends was 10 million.
That had to be towards the end.
Jesus. I'm sorry, but that's stupid. ER 13 million an episode.
Again, I'm sure that's towards the end once people start asking for more money.
The Crown. Okay, 13 million an episode for The Crown.
Sure.
Okay, now this is getting stupid. The Morning Show. I'm guessing that was a program that okay, so that was actually a TV show. 15 million an episode. We got Jennifer Aniston. Okay, Game of Thrones, 15 million. I have. Okay, here comes the Disney and Marvel side. The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett was 15 million an episode. Oh, the Pacific, 20 million an episode, and yeah, Marvel and Disney shows 25 million an episode.
Yeah, and this is above and beyond that.
Yes.
So
yeah, so actually, I was kind of surprised on a few of those there, but it's interesting to see kind of what things are costing there. But geez, but the question is, like, I'm actually kind of surprised that the Mandalorian's budget was that high, but some of the technology they were using, like, and I mentioned this in our one previous Mandalorian versus season 3 of Picard, that the technology that they use to generate the sets is it's like they're actually in a 3D space and it's all just screens that's projected on, so that they can say, okay, this is where we want the camera to be. This is how, you know. And that would cut down on the budget and stuff a little bit, but it's like they took, you know, they're like, oh, we have all this great technology here, but we're going to somehow balloon this budget to something astronomical. And I get it.
Well, again, it's probably the actors. Like, think about The Mandalorian. Like, there were a number of real actors in that.
Yeah, Bill Burr being the best out of
Bill Burr.
I'm telling you, he had the best character arc of any character in any of those.
Well, only because of his last appearance, where they go to infiltrate the Imperial base.
Yes. Well, that's what I'm saying. He went from, like, you know, scumbag to, you kind of understand why he was kind of, you know, upset at life, because I mean, pretty much he worked for the Empire and they pretty much shat on him and his, you know, his team and such. So I don't know.
Yeah. But you had them and you had some other folks in there. So that's a lot of the main stuff we wanted to cover here in the inaugural episode. However, as we were discussing this, Jim brought up something that I think is worth repeating.
Okay.
So let's hear this theory you have about the Clone Wars.
So
from Star Wars.
So I want to first of all make this clear that I'm not like I like The Force Awakens. I thought it was an okay start to, you know, a possible sequel trilogy, but I was not a fan of The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. I think they had stuff in them that looked nice. And first time watching, I thought in The Last Jedi that the throne room scene looked nice, but then when you go back and watch it a second time and you see all of the flaws in that fight choreography,
yeah,
I can never look at that scene ever again.
Well, unfortunately, I saw most of them the first time around because I distinctly recall that is the moment that mentally I had the thought of, I do not care what happens in the rest of this movie. I don't care what happens to any of these people. I honestly, sincerely hope they all die. And I checked out at that point because the scene just looked so ludicrous to me whenever I was watching it. I could tell that there were just numerous moments when the two of them should have both been killed. And like I did not catch the whole like one guy's weapons just disappear. But yeah, the rest of it I was just like, this is over choreographed baloney. Like they should both be dead. Because that was right after they should have never been able to kill Snoke. You know, there's just one preposterous thing right after another. I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm checking out.
You know, and you get those scenes in movies at time and time. There's one in it would be the Dark Knight Rises, where Batman and Catwoman are fighting like a group of thugs on a rooftop, and there's one thug who's like in the wrong spot and has to like purposely like throw himself away from the fight, like so he looks like he gets punched, but there's nobody. Like he's behind Batman, he's just kind of like, ugh, you know, like back, and it's like, no, you know, but that's one of those they hide it so cleverly that you don't really notice it. There's one in James Bond where there's an extra in the background supposed to be sweeping, but he's like a foot off the ground as he's sweeping.
Yeah, I mean, things like that don't bother me. That's just little trivial things.
But this was that whole scene was nothing but that. It was just nothing but gaffes and things that should not have happened. Like the one where she like drops her lightsaber to like catch it later. I'm like, that's when you just,
yeah,
you'd be dead at that point. But anyways, so let's just say that besides the movies being bad, if we want to somehow tie the prequel trilogy to the sequel trilogy.
Hope you folks are sitting down for this one. This is good.
So we had obviously the Emperor, issued the clones, but I guess in a sense he would have also issued the creation of the
yes, the Emperor. For those of you who somehow didn't catch this, the Emperor is controlling both sides of the war. Okay, because he is controlling the Neomodians, the Trade Federation, who are the leaders of the Separatists. Okay, and then later on, Count Dooku's the leader. And he's the apprentice to the Emperor. Okay, meanwhile, as the not quite Emperor yet, he's also controlling the Republic and masterminded the whole Sifo Dyas thing as far as creating the clone army. In fact, there's a video game that's kind of the prequel to that. I don't remember which one it's called, but you play as Jango Fett, and you're essentially at the end find out you've been auditioning to be the template for the clone army.
Jango Fett Bounty Hunter.
Okay. And so, yeah, so the whole thing was very well constructed on Palpatine's part. He planned on controlling the Republic. He gathered all the factions that could potentially be a problem down the road into the Separatists, so they could be smashed by the Republic, and then he could rule unopposed.
And I think he purposely picked a droid army for the Separatists. Not only because he knew that he needed an army that he could shut down at some point, because that's the problem is if any separatist army that had other people, like, other sentient people working for it, you can't.
Which, if you look in all the expanded material, they did have quite a few real people in there.
They cause an immediate problem because you can't control them. Versus droids, you can say, hey, we're going to shut them down. But that's not my theory. My theory is that he needed to create a large enough workforce, and he needed to have a way to, obviously take over over the Republic and have this large enough workforce or whatever. So what he did is he took all these decommissioned droids, from all these factories or whatever, shipped them over to Exegol, and had them start building those Star Destroyer fleets, or start building a base of operations, we'll say. But that's why the Star Destroyers that are used are actually based off of the Imperial Star Destroyer. What is it? The one, not the two. I can't remember. I'm trying to think what the exact name is, because you have the Imperial Star Destroyer and then the
Imperial Star Destroyer has both the 1 and the 2.
Yeah, so I think that's why they're the 1 with the. Now, obviously, budgetary reasons. The reason they use the 1 is because they had the miniature made from and the model made from Rogue One. But it makes sense. And then now the super laser side of things, it still kind of fits because they from all the way back on Geonosis they had the plans for the Death Star. So toning down a super laser. Though I think Rogue One kind of makes that whole scene kind of not work, because obviously they didn't have the technology to build the Death Star yet, because they had to have Galen Erso.
Right.
But no, but the idea is that all the stuff that you see on Exegol was not made by people. I'm thinking I'm putting out there the droid army. And actually that scene in the Mandalorian kind of would build upon that being the case, because a lot of the droids were turned into physical labor.
Yeah.
So, no. Now, if that's true, my God, I'd be surprised. But it's just a neat idea. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that's plausible or anything else, but it would give a way to connect the two together. And honestly, if they did, I would at least give them some credit for thinking, like that. But The problem, though, that I have with all the sequel movies is I don't think they were thinking out the entire story.
Well, no. Well, we know they weren't.
I know.
Okay.
But
So
there was, well, that's what I mean. There was no future think of, okay, we're going to go from what happens on, The Force Awakens to what happens in The Last Jedi. Now, don't get me wrong, that transition actually works in the beginning for having the First Order show up while they're evacuating the planet, because, I mean, that's what happened kind of in, well, not really. In The Empire Strikes Back, that's essentially what happens, is that they search out for wherever the rebel cell is. This time they just got there even before they could evacuate their first base.
Well, sure, but the big difference isn't that. The big difference is the other movies have a huge time jump between them.
Oh, yeah.
Of months to years. There's no time jump here.
No, it's literally hours. And yes, and space fuel.
Yeah,
which
space fuel, but also somehow in hours the First Order took over everything. Because that's a plot point in The Last Jedi. They're controlling everything now. And it's like, they weren't at the end of the last movie. We've established mere hours or days have passed. You couldn't even get news out to the rest of the galaxy that things had happened in that amount of time. Much less for everyone to just surrender, which they wouldn't. So, no, they're stupid movies. No one should pay attention to them. They should have definitely just followed the books. But, no.
You know what? Maybe we should paint ourselves some time to come back and actually find a few positive things about those movies.
That's asking a lot, Jim.
Well,
I can tell you only one positive thing about Rise of Skywalker. That we finally got to see the Emperor just cut loose at the end. Because I'm sure they just told Ian McDiarmid, you know what? Just go for it.
I don't know. I was going to say the Force Lightning was...
And then whenever he does who needs a stinking Death Star when you can do this? Just... Which should have fried half the Republic, half the fleet. Which... Also, that leads to the downside there. That fleet should have stood no chance. I don't care if the shields were down those Star Destroyers. Those was a bunch of ships owned by regular people versus military warships that numbered in the thousands. Plus, they had to have some stupidly high number of TIE fighters on board them.
Yes, and, well, like I say, the biggest problem I had is MacGuffin. There should never be a MacGuffin there's a central, because... The Death Star, it made sense because people are like, it's a giant Death Star. You're going to have ports and stuff to cool that reactor down when you're shooting shit with it. But the fact that they couldn't navigate in atmosphere because of something blah, 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 Exegol, wouldn't that make the same sense for everybody flying all those ships, that they would have some sort of disadvantage because of the same thing?
Right. They would be at the same disadvantage. And again, it comes down to, I don't care if you bring a bunch of civilian ships... one Star Destroyer should probably be able to deal with most of them. Not thousands. The thousands would be like, okay, open fire. We're going to hit some of our own men. Don't care. Tell them to shoot first. Because the Empire does not care about its own soldiers. That's a feature, not a bug.
I mean, that's why they have so many people. Just throw bodies at the problem.
Right. Look at the TIE Fighter versus the X-Wing. The TIE Fighter is a flying coffin that can happen to shoot back occasionally. The X-Wing has life support, not just exposed to space. If you ever see the TIE Fighter, those little holes, that's space, okay? If you're flying in a TIE Fighter, you're in vacuum. That's not sealed. So, yeah, no hyperdrive, no missiles, no shields. I mean, you're a laser gun that can zip around really fast.
But... because of those things, that's why you got really, really good pilots at...
Oh yeah, anyone that's an ace from a TIE Fighter, I wouldn't want to screw with them.
And speaking of that, one thing I do want to, at least some point talk about, because me and Bobby both have very fond memories of, is the game TIE Fighter.
Oh, yes.
Now, if we do that at some point, we will make a mention of X-Wing, maybe X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, which I wasn't really a big fan of. And you never played X-Wing Alliance, but I can definitely do some talking points on that. But
which one was X-Wing Alliance?
X-Wing Alliance was the follow-up to... it was the follow-up after X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter. But it was... Again, you played for, the Rebels. But one of the... the key aspects that you could do in there is you could fly a freighter and you could dock with things like you could like a lot of times in TIE Fighter you would be flying as a TIE Fighter protecting a ship, maybe dock into another ship, and you have to protect that. Well, in X-Wing Alliance you can actually fly the freighters, dock with things to perform that same action. So
yeah, I don't know if I played that one
then. That, and you can fly every single ship with a simple edit to the code in it. And yes, and I mean every ship you can fly a Super Star Destroyer and just fly into things to destroy it. Space Station, I just run into it.
Just make sure you don't hit an X-wing with your bridge, or sorry, an A-wing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I want to know. I want to see that battle put. The amount of damage that the Executor would have had to take to lower its bridge deflector shield, because the bridge deflector shield, I mean, is extra shield for the bridge, not just because the rest of the ship still has to have shields on it.
Well, I assume whenever they're like concentrate all firepower on the Super Star Destroyer, that's what they did.
Concentrate all firepower on the Super Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
It's a trap.
Yeah, it was.
Speaking of which, while Return of the Jedi is definitely not my favorite movie, that moment when they realize the shield generator is still up and that they, were jamming their sensors and everything, it, to me, to this day, will still get my heart pumping, because that's just like, I don't know. It's Star Wars, and that's really the biggest star battle that you have. I mean, you did have it in New Hope a little bit, but it's like 3 TIE fighters, a couple X-Wings.
Yeah, that was more like space dogfight coupled with space bombing run.
I mean, the final battle over Endor, I mean, it's even on Endor itself, I mean, that's like, holy shit, it's like, yeah, we got like a handful of fighters, and there's just so much of everything there. I mean,
yeah,
it's so overwhelming. I mean, I'd be shitting my pants every.
Yeah, I mean, it was meant to be the finale for everything, so it was this is it. This is the big battle. Even though, realistically, and the books go with this idea, that would not have like brought down the Empire or anything.
Well,
you don't control 2/3 of the galaxy, and oh man, we lost the main guy and the second in command. Like, what do we do now? It's like, well, who's the third in command? Like, that's what you do.
But the reason that everybody ran, and why everybody was able to, a big portion of the rebellion was able to escape, is that everybody's like, yeah, we might want to get away from this giant thing about ready to explode. And everybody. That's why at the very last shot you see all the ships flying away, including what was left of the Empire. Now I like the fact
my point is, like, that would have been like a rounding error to the total might of the Empire there. Like, realistically, the Empire had to have hundreds of thousands of ships to control that many systems and everything.
But they did kind of solve that a little bit, though, with the warring factions, where the people are trying to say, well, no, because when you have multiple people that are in the same level of command, you're going to have the fight for power there.
Kind of, although a lot of them were not in the same level of command as part of the problem. Because the next people in line should have been the Grand Admirals, and there were only 12 of them. So the problem is that narratively, you couldn't have a cohesive enemy at that point. You had to introduce the idea of things falling apart so that the rebellion stood any chance at all. Because the logical next move is, well, we know the rebellion's at Endor, like, let's smash them right here and now. Let's bring overwhelming might and just destroy them.
Yeah. Well, that, and I want to see it would have been great if they had like some sort of ecological impact from the Death Star blowing up in the...
Yeah, that came up in one of the books. I don't remember which one, because one guy, there's an Imperial trooper sitting there, is like, well, at least I'm safe in the knowledge that the whole moon burned to a crisp, and they're like, well, that didn't happen. He's like, what do you mean that didn't happen? So that's the Endor Holocaust theory, if you've never heard of it. Because all that burning wreckage should have just rained down onto that planet, and that would all just been kindling to that stuff. But it didn't. And there's a later book that tries to explain it.
Yeah, I guess it always depends on how to me, it seemed like, I mean, it would have to be fairly close to the planet to envelop it into a planetary shield, or into the
Yeah,
shield.
it's got to be. Plus the explosive force, it's going to send everything out in a sphere. Well, the planet is in the path of that sphere, so a chunk of it's going to rain down on the planet.
But yeah, it really depends on how close it technically is to Endor. Because, like, say if it's from the Earth to the Moon, we would get impacted by very little of debris, believe it or not, because we are like 230,000 miles, 230,000 miles from the moon. And if, like, say, if the moon exploded, I mean, yeah, we get shit that would rain down upon us, but we are such a small target to hit. But I think Endor was actually, I think it was way closer to Endor than Endor. It sounds like I'm saying Endor.
No, I get what you're saying. The problem is
Yeah.
that the stuff's superheated metal.
Yeah, no,
Like-
I'm not saying that it wouldn't. I'm thinking more would rain down because I think it was closer because if you look up in the sky when they show the shot of, anytime they show the shot of the Death Star, I mean, it was about the size of our moon in the sky, which means that it would have to be extremely close because it was nowhere. I don't think it was anywhere close to the size of our moon.
I actually don't know how wide our moon is, so I couldn't guess.
Oh, I don't know.
But because the Death Star was like 160 kilometers across.
Well, you know that between the Earth and the Moon, you could fit every single planet in the solar system.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen that, and people are like, "Yeah, you know, you can do that." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yes." And I thought that was crazy, but
Isn't like Jupiter like hundreds of times larger than the Earth?
yeah. See if I can find that picture. That's Yep.
Well, there's an important caveat in there.
What?
You read what it said.
What, at apogee?
Yeah. So it only came when it's at the farthest point from the Earth.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I'm just saying that's
Okay.
a very important distinction.
But that's still a lot of distance.
Yeah, I mean it's still impressive, you know.
But no, I don't know. I think I would. That would have been great during the celebration if they were down there, and all of a sudden just like a giant chunk of Death Star rains down on top of them and
Well, I mean,
crushes the rebellion quite literally.
I think it would have happened instantaneously after the explosion, but yeah. But that's also kind of another point is like, aren't there like holes from Star Destroyers up there too? And isn't gravity just going to pull them right down now that nothing's holding them up? Like there should be all kinds of burning metal crap raining down on this planet that's nothing but trees, because it's Star Wars and there's only one biome on every planet.
Of course.
Until we get to the sequel trilogy. See, that's why the Empire had their shit together. One planet, one biome. Once a good man like Palpatine's gone, things just go to hell, and you get land and water and everything on there, and you can't do that. That's nonsense.
Oh, one thing that I don't know why I thought about this, but when we do our TIE Fighter discussion, the one thing that TIE Fighter really brought to the TIE Fighter game for PC, the one thing that it brought to light is that the Empire wasn't all about just destruction of everything. Like, they wanted stuff to rule. They wanted stuff to. So, like, say if there was the one that I always remember, there was a planet that was having a civil war. And the thing you were trying to do is go there and put an end to it, not actually through force, but, I mean, in a way, force too, because you force them to go to the negotiating table. But it a lot of times would paint the picture that, the Empire's here trying to maintain order in the galaxy, but not in the way that you'd imagine, that they're actually trying to, prevent systems for, conflicts on different systems and stuff like that, because there's no point of having this empire if you're going to have all these factions out there warring each other and all that. You want to get everything. And they may not have approached it in the most, I guess, republic way of things, but sometimes you have to just say, you know what, we're going to capture the leader of this group, put them together in a negotiating room. We'll make them come to an agreement. I think Anakin had it right. He's like, if they don't agree, we'll make them agree.
Well,
in a sense.
I don't know if Anakin had it right on that one, but I do have to agree with him on sand, though. I hate it too.
It does get everywhere. And it's coarse.
Yes.
Anyways.
But yeah, so that probably brings us to the end of the discussions here. So, kind of closing on the first episode, this is generally how the format is going to work in all likelihood. Maybe we'll have fewer topics that take longer to discuss. I don't know if we're going to aim for a target time. We're probably going to hit for a target range on time. But I'll look around and see, if everyone else conforms to like, it's strictly 2 hours or strictly 1 hour, then that's what we'll drift towards. And we'll try to rein things in a little bit. Or we'll just discuss fewer topics or something. We'll figure it out. But let us know what you think about things like that, especially if you're seeing this on YouTube, where I know you can leave comments. And if it's someplace that you can't, again, hit us up on social media, on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now, at Real Geek Cabal, or on Facebook, Geek Cabal. And but basically we just want you guys' feedback and let us know, like, how frequently would you like to see episodes like this? I imagine the most it's going to be is probably once a week.
Do you want us to ramble more? Ramble less? Have more structured?
Ramble on.
Yes.
Those of you who are Led Zeppelin fans.
And one thing you've noticed is that we've, obviously I was looking at the phone for different things. If you like us kind of pulling things up like that randomly, does that take away from things or what? I mean, I've seen a lot of podcasts where they'll literally have one guy on the computer all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that have a lot more people, like they'll yell out, "Hey, Steve, fact check me on that one," and yeah, John, you're good.
Or you're full of shit.
Yeah, something. So basically, just give us some feedback is what we want to hear. Read whatever, and there probably won't be an episode for a little bit after this because, like I said, we're filming this on a Friday. Next week, Thursday through Sunday, we're going to be at GenCon, and we're not going to be able to get together probably before then, plus unless something really big breaks in the news, there's not going to be anything to talk about. So it'll probably be after GenCon, and that episode will probably be about GenCon. Now, if there's a bunch of other stuff comes up, we might try to film 2 episodes and stagger them out or something. We'll figure all that out. But ideally, I think we're going to shoot for once a week. This so far has gone on for a little over an hour and 16 minutes by my timer here. So probably hour to hour and a half is what we're going to be shooting for. But again, let us know on that. Do you want to hear 2 hours? It's going to involve more rambling probably. Unless we can find more topics, which we do have some ideas. It's probably going to be a lot of stuff we talk about in the other videos, just all together, and or things that like we want to talk about, but we don't know if there's enough to make a lengthy video about it, so we'll throw it in here. Movies we've seen recently. We might even attempt actual news topics, so long as we can avoid getting stupidly political about it, because I'll get enough of that crap on the real news. And or if there's anything you guys want to hear us talk about, if we got time, if we don't know about it, we'll look it up or try to. We'll also try to cover, news in the, video game, movie, comic book, collectible, and tabletop gaming realms. It's just I don't think there's anything going on because Gen Con's next week. And San Diego Comic-Con is just the other week. And the main thing out of that was the Marvels trailer and some action figure stuff. And I don't know if you guys want to hear about action figures, so we didn't mention those.
Yeah, we still got to see how we did one video on some building block sets that should be coming. That one should be coming out soon, right?
Have I not posted that yet?
I don't know. I don't think so.
If that's not up, it'll be up soon. I have the video edited, so
I don't believe it is. But if not, yeah, there should be a video of some building block sets to go along with the Star Trek
Yeah.
Since we got on the topic of Star Trek a while back, talking about the original 6, I got inspired to buy some Star Trek inspired building block sets. So put some of those together, and we did a review on that. So look out for that.
So short things like that, if it is short, could end up on here too. And we might also, we'll almost definitely talk about longer videos that we're going to have up on YouTube. So assuming you're listening to this and not watching the video right now, because if you're watching the video, you're probably watching it on YouTube. So this will also act as a minor, hey, upcoming features on our channel on YouTube thing. So that's basically what you can look forward to. And like I said, the main thing is we just want to know how all this looks and sounds to you guys. If there's any kind of topics in particular you want to talk about, what do you think of these topics? And we're also going to, this is the preliminary, because there's a lot of things I have to see how they work as far as uploading and technical side. Once I have that figured out, the next step is to bring in our other compatriots who are going to have to do so over distance communication. And that's going to be another little technological step I've got to figure out the bugs to. But hopefully that will happen very quickly. Because I've been talking with someone that seems to know what they're talking about, and they've got some ideas. But we wanted to get this initial episode up, get things moving, so that we have things moving by the time GenCon comes around. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And, let us know. Ultimately, that's what I've been saying for the last 2 minutes. But otherwise, Jim, you seem to be the master of the outro here. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, this has been a Geek Cabal podcast, if I could speak again. I think we have issues with speaking, but yes, this has been a Geek Cabal podcast, not a codpast.
Better than a cod piece.
Yeah, nobody needs to be wearing any of those. So, anyways, we hope to see you at GenCon, and till next time.
Yeah, till next time, see you out there. Don't shut it off.